I do consider myself a Sjogren's expert. Now, what is an expert? An expert is someone who knows what they know. They have an idea of what they don't know. But they have an idea of where to find it. It certainly doesn't mean I know everything. Never ever ever. But I can ask the right questions, or try to ask the right questions. My interest in Sjogren's has been around for a while, but I really got involved in what I'm doing when I completely dropped the ball with my mom. It's easy to teach this stuff, but when you're actually doing it, it's tougher than one would think. I think it's easy to talk about it, but when it's you that's dealing with it, what I found the hardest thing for me to do was to stop expecting her to just push through it. To stop treating her fatigue like it was a bad attitude. To stop thinking if she just tried harder, she'd feel better. Because that's not how Sjogren's works. And because I messed everything up, I then wrote a book. The book is really for families, and it's about how you can capture the right tools to communicate with your loved ones so that you don't fall into some of the traps. We're going to talk a little bit about those traps today. The first issue is really that Sjogren's in our country, I believe, is at epidemic proportions. And as I talk to you, I don't necessarily know about your own personal family members, whether they have it or not. That's not important right now. But I've got a captive audience who knows other people, and so anybody I can get on the team to help other people, you know. So I've got one more step for you, and that's to maybe work with folks in your church or in your neighborhood or that kind of thing. I look at Sjogren's as the elephant in the room. It's absolutely at epidemic proportions in our country, but because we can't fix it, we don't want to talk about it. You remember in the old days when people had cancer, we whispered. We called it the big C. We were scared of it because we couldn't fix it. Well, now you turn on the TV and there are ads for drugs you can take if the chemo is bothering you too much. It's changed drastically because cancer became something we could name, something we could address. Our problem with Sjogren's is a little different. People have heard of it, maybe, but they look at someone with Sjogren's and they think, well, you don't look sick. And that right there is one of the biggest communication traps we are going to talk about today. Hit subscribe and leave a like. That helps this channel reach more people who need it. The goal at Health Inside is 200,000 subscribers, and every single person who joins moves us closer. I am going to walk you through revealing a different way Sjogren's is driving in your body, and if you want my Sjogren's symptom map that connects these signs to your body, type symptom map in the comments and I will drop the link directly. You already know something is wrong. Your body has been telling you for longer than anyone believed you. Now I don't really much care, to be totally honest with you, whether it's primary Sjogren's or secondary Sjogren's, or whether it's attacking the glands or the nerves or the joints, unless you're a researcher. Some of you are researchers, that's a different story. But very simplistically, there are three things happening with Sjogren's that directly affect how we communicate with someone who has it. The first one is fatigue. And I don't mean tired. I don't mean I need a nap tired. I mean bone deep, can't lift my arms tired. The kind of tired where someone says just come over for an hour and the person with Sjogren's has to calculate whether they have enough energy in the bank for that. This is usually the first place where we as families get ourselves into trouble. Because we see someone who looks fine, and we expect them to perform like someone who is fine. That's the trap. The second thing is brain fog. And this one is invisible. You can't see it on someone's face. But for someone with Sjogren's, cognitive fatigue and brain fog are absolutely real and absolutely documented. I think of it like this. You ever driven into a patch of fog on the highway? In a nanosecond your heart rate goes up. You slow down. You're thinking, did I pass my exit? Am I in the right lane? Is somebody about to hit me? 50 million thoughts run through your mind at once. Now imagine that is not a 5-minute patch of fog on the highway. Imagine that is your Tuesday. Your Wednesday. Your every single day. That's what Sjogren's brain fog can feel like. I can't quite see. I can't quite track. I can't quite hold the thought I had 2 seconds ago. And that matters enormously when we are talking about how to communicate with someone who has it. The third piece is pain and dryness. Now people hear dryness and they think dry lips, carry some chapstick, problem solved. No. We are talking about dry eyes that feel like sandpaper. A dry mouth that makes it physically painful to speak for extended periods. Joints that ache and swell. Nerves that misfire. Skin that cracks and burns. And what happens when someone is in chronic pain? They pull inward. They get quiet. They cancel. And sometimes we misread that quiet as rudeness or distance or not caring. It is none of those things. It is someone doing their absolute best to function while their body is working against them every single minute of the day. So those are the three things: fatigue, brain fog, and pain. And when you understand those three things, everything else I am going to tell you today starts to make a lot more sense. Now here is something I want to add before we go any further, because I think it is the thing that families most often miss. Sjogren's is a systemic autoimmune disease. That means it is not just the glands. It is not just the eyes and the mouth. It can affect the lungs, the kidneys, the nervous system, the heart, the skin, the blood vessels. So when your loved one says "I don't feel well," they are not being vague or dramatic. They may be experiencing 4 or 5 things simultaneously that they don't even have words for, because the combination changes from day to day. There is not a reliable list they can hand you. Their body is on a schedule that nobody gave them a copy of. And what that means for us as family members and as caregivers is that we cannot hold them to yesterday's standard. We just can't. What they could do on Monday may not be available to them on Thursday. And if we build our communication style around who they were before the diagnosis, or even who they were last week, we are going to spend a lot of time feeling frustrated and a lot of time making them feel like failures. So our first job, before any technique or tool, is to genuinely update our expectations. Not lower them in a way that is condescending. Just let them be accurate. Now the brain has 2 jobs, and this applies to all of us, not just people with Sjogren's. The first job is to make the best sense of what is going on that it possibly can. Have any of you ever tripped in public and fallen down? What was the first thing you said? You made the best sense of it you could, and you said, "Oh, I'm fine, I just wasn't watching where I was going." 2 broken ankles, and you go, "I'm fine." Because our brain wants us to stay in control. Think about someone with Sjogren's who is already working twice as hard to hold a conversation, and now someone is pushing them on why they cancelled plans again or why they seem so out of it. Their brain is going to do its very best to manage that. They might minimize. They might deflect. They might agree just to make the conversation stop. Not because they are being dishonest. Because they are working with a brain that is doing its absolute best under very difficult conditions. The second job of the brain is to keep us emotionally safe. I don't want to fail. I don't want to say I'm struggling again and watch your face fall. I don't want to cancel again and feel your frustration through the phone. I don't want to explain myself one more time to someone who looks at me like I'm being weak. So I might tell you I'm fine when I'm not. And that is not a character flaw. That is a person protecting themselves in the only way they have left in that moment. Now let's talk about the traps. The things we say to people with Sjogren's that we truly don't mean to be harmful, but are. The first one is, "You don't look sick." I know nobody says it to be cruel. In fact, a lot of people say it thinking it's a compliment. You look great. You really do. Nobody would ever know. And what they think they're saying is you're handling this beautifully. But what the person with Sjogren's hears is "I don't quite believe you." And for someone who has probably already had years of being dismissed by doctors, dismissed by employers, dismissed by family members, sometimes dismissed for years before they even got a diagnosis, that sentence lands like a punch. Sjogren's takes an average of nearly 3 years to diagnose. 3 years of being told you're just stressed. You're just getting older. You're just anxious. Maybe try sleeping more. 3 years of that before someone finally gives them a name for it. So when you walk in and say you don't look sick, even lovingly, you are accidentally echoing all of those years. We are going to take that one out of the rotation entirely. The second trap is, "But you were fine yesterday." Sjogren's doesn't work on a predictable schedule. Flares come and go. Fatigue crashes without warning. Someone can be at a birthday dinner on Saturday and completely bedridden on Sunday, and that is not them being dramatic. It is not them milking it. It is not them deciding Sunday is a good day to skip out on responsibilities. That is the nature of the disease. When we say "but you were fine yesterday," what the person with Sjogren's hears is "you're being inconsistent and I don't trust it." So we want to stop saying that too. And here's what we want to say instead. Nothing. Or, "What do you need today?" Those are the 2 options. Nothing or "What do you need today?" The third trap is the one I really want to spend some time on, and that is any sentence that starts with "can't you just?" Can't you just push through it? Can't you just come for a little while and leave early? Can't you just try to eat something? Can't you just think positive? Can't you just not let it run your life? There is no just with Sjogren's. Every single one of those sentences takes a real and documented medical condition, and turns it into a willpower problem. And the person with Sjogren's has already told themselves some version of can't you just 100 times before you ever said it. They don't need it from you too. In fact, the number one thing I hear from people with Sjogren's about their families is not that they feel unloved. They feel the love. What they feel is pressure to perform wellness. And that pressure is exhausting in a way that has nothing to do with their symptoms. It's an extra layer of work that they carry around every time they're with someone who expects them to seem fine. The fourth trap, and this one is subtle, is taking over. When someone with Sjogren's is struggling to find a word, or losing the thread of a sentence because of brain fog, or moving slowly because of joint pain, we jump in. We finish their sentences. We take the grocery bag out of their hands. We call the doctor ourselves. We make the decision. And we do it out of love, I know that. But what we are also doing is communicating that we don't trust them to manage their own life. And autonomy, the feeling that I still have some control here, is one of the most important things you can protect in a person with a chronic illness. So the rule is this. Wait. Be comfortable with a pause. Let them finish. Let them carry the bag if they want to carry the bag. And if they need help, let them ask. The fifth trap is comparison. Oh, you have it so much better than so-and-so. At least it's not lupus. At least it's not cancer. At least you can still walk. Now I understand where this comes from. People are trying to offer perspective. Trying to help their loved one find something to feel grateful for. But what comparison actually does is close the door. It tells the person with Sjogren's that their suffering needs to be ranked and justified before you're willing to sit with them in it. And most of the time they're not asking you to fix it. They're just asking you to acknowledge it. So instead of at least it's not, try what you're dealing with sounds really hard. That's it. You don't have to fix it. You just have to be present in it with them. So I say don't say those things, and I know you're already thinking, well, what on earth am I supposed to say then? And this is where it gets genuinely good. What we want to learn about the person with Sjogren's is what are their strengths. And sometimes the symptoms are so loud that we forget those strengths are still there. What are they? Let me tell you a few. Long-term knowledge and passion. When someone has Sjogren's, brain fog may affect how they track a complicated, fast-moving conversation in the moment, but it does not take away what they know. It does not take away what they love. If your loved one spent 40 years gardening, they still know gardening. If they were a school teacher, they still carry that. If they were passionate about cooking or fabric or birds or history or woodworking or baseball, that is still in there. So instead of asking them to perform in a way that exposes where Sjogren's has made things harder, walk right into the things they know deeply and let them lead. I'll tell you a story. I had a friend whose mother had Sjogren's pretty significantly. Bad fatigue, bad brain fog on the hard days. And my friend would call and try to have these long catching up conversations, and the mom would get quiet, get short, and my friend thought she was pulling away from the relationship. She wasn't pulling away. She was exhausted. So I said to my friend, next time you call, don't call to catch up. Call to ask her one specific question about something she knows better than you. Something where she's the expert. So the next call she said, Mom, I'm trying to grow basil again and I keep killing it. What am I doing wrong? And her mother talked for 20 minutes. 20 minutes. Useful. Successful. Present. Laughing at the end. That is what we are going for. Now here is the framework I teach, and I want you to write this down somewhere because it is simple and it works. I call it coming in with something. Before you visit, before you call, before you stop by, you pick one thing. Just one. A story, a question rooted in something they love, a memory, an observation about something in the world that you know connects to who they are. You come in holding it. And if the conversation gets hard, or foggy, or quiet, you put that thing on the table. Not as a distraction. Not to change the subject away from how they are feeling. But as a bridge. As a way of saying I know you. I didn't just come here to check on you like you're a problem to be managed. I came here because I know you and I want to be with you. Let me give you an example. Let's say your sister has Sjogren's and she used to love baking. She can't stand in the kitchen for long periods anymore, and that loss is real and she has grieved it. You don't want to rub her face in it by talking about recipes. But you could say, I drove past that bakery on 5th Street and they had those lemon bars in the window, and I thought of that summer you made about 40 of them for the church sale. Now you're not asking her to perform. You're not asking her a question she has to struggle to answer. You are just placing a warm, familiar thing in the room. And she can pick it up if she wants to, or she can let it sit there, and either way she knows she is known. Humor is another enormous strength, and I want to spend a minute here because families often get so serious around a Sjogren's diagnosis, and I understand why. It's scary. It's chronic. It's unpredictable. But people with Sjogren's, particularly people who have been living with it for a while, often have a very finely developed sense of humor about their own situation. They've had to. They've had enough absurd moments, enough ridiculous symptoms, enough well-meaning people saying completely the wrong thing, that sometimes you have to laugh or you'll cry every day. So let them be funny. Laugh with them. Don't wince and look worried every time they make a joke about their own condition. They are not asking for your grief every time they crack a joke. They are releasing something. Let them. Music is a strength. If they have songs they love, songs that go back years, songs that are tied to big moments in their life, those songs do not require effortful thinking. They live in a different part of the brain entirely. You can hum a few bars of something and watch someone come alive who 5 minutes ago looked completely checked out. Know their songs. Know their artists. Know whether they are a Hymns on Sunday person or a Motown person or a country person. That is a tool you have in your pocket. If they have a spiritual base, that is hardwired. That is in the body at this point. Prayers they have said 1,000 times. Bible verses they memorized as a child. Rituals that are so practiced they require almost no effort to follow. These are deeply comforting, not because they solve anything, but because they are familiar, and familiar feels safe when so much feels unpredictable. Know that about your person. And know it specifically. Not just their religious. What are their specific anchors? Now let's talk about the 5 senses because these are phenomenal communication tools that work whether someone is in a flare or not, whether conversation is flowing or not, whether they have the energy for a 2-hour visit or a 15-minute one. What do they like to see? What view from a window matters to them? What colors do they love? What photographs should be close by? What kind of light makes them comfortable? These seem small. They are not small. Walking into a space that reflects who you are and what you love is worth more than a lot of words. What do they like to smell? Smells bypass effortful thinking and go straight to memory and emotion. That is not poetic language, that is neuroscience. The olfactory system has a direct pathway to the limbic system, which is the part of the brain that handles emotion and memory. So if you know your mother has always loved the smell of coffee cake baking, or fresh cut grass, or a specific perfume she has worn since 1975, those smells are a door. Use them. Not to manipulate. Just to connect. What do they like to taste? Now here we need to be careful and also creative. Someone with Sjogren's may have a complicated relationship with food and eating. Dry mouth makes swallowing difficult. Acid reflux is common. Certain textures become hard to manage. So we don't want to lead with food in a way that highlights another thing they've lost. But we also don't want to take away their ability to choose. Don't make all their food decisions for them. Give a small, real choice. Would you prefer the soup or the crackers? What sounds good to you right now? Keep their autonomy intact. And if you know there is something they genuinely love and can still enjoy, bring that. Not as a cure. Just as a pleasure. What do they like to touch? Is there a blanket they love? A certain fabric? A pet? Touch and sensory comfort matter enormously when someone's body is often giving them unpleasant sensations. A soft blanket they have had for years, a pet that curls up beside them, a familiar texture, these are grounding. Know what they are for your person. What do they like to hear? Is it birds? A specific song? The sound of a grandchild on the phone? Rain on the window? The television on in the background at a low volume, not for watching but just for the sound of human voices? These are not small details. These are the architecture of a good day. And if you know them you can help build one. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't get enough airtime, and that is the conversation around activity and pacing. Because families often make one of 2 mistakes. Either they push their loved one to do more, come on it's good for you, you'll feel better if you get moving, or they wrap them in so much protective cotton that the person with Sjogren's ends up sitting in a chair watching life happen through a window. Neither of those is right. What people with Sjogren's need is supported pacing. They need someone who understands the energy envelope concept. Here's what that means. Imagine you wake up every day with a certain number of coins in your pocket. Healthy people wake up with a lot of coins. People with Sjogren's often wake up with fewer. Every activity costs coins. Getting dressed costs coins. Showering costs coins. Having a conversation costs coins. Going to an appointment costs coins. And here's the part that's hard to accept. Emotional stress costs coins too. An argument with a family member. Feeling misunderstood. Feeling pressured. These are not free. These come out of the same limited supply. So when you visit someone with Sjogrens and you push them, even lovingly, you are spending their coins. And when you leave they may have nothing left. That is why some people with Sjogrens dread certain visits even from people they love deeply. Not because of the person. Because of what that visit costs them afterward. So what does a good visit look like? It is lower stakes than you think. It does not have to be long. It does not have to be productive. You do not have to arrive with a plan or leave having accomplished something. A good visit might be sitting together quietly. It might be watching something they enjoy. It might be 10 minutes of real conversation and then comfortable silence. What makes it good is not its length or its activity level. What makes it good is whether the person with Sjogrens feels safe in it. Feels known. Doesn't feel like they're performing or justifying or explaining themselves. Feels like they can just be exactly where they are today without any apology. Now here is something I want families to really hear. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone with Sjogrens is to stop trying to fix it. I know that is hard. We are fixers by nature, most of us. Especially if this is a parent or a spouse, someone we are used to solving problems for or with. But Sjogrens is not a problem that yields to effort. There is no solution you can research hard enough to find. There is no supplement combination, no positive attitude, no treatment plan that makes it go away. And when we keep showing up with the energy of let's fix this, what we communicate is that the current version of them, the version that is sick and limited and some days barely functional, is not acceptable to us. That we are waiting for the real them to come back. But this is the real them. Right now. Today. And they need to know you are here for this version too. So I'll say it plainly. Show up for the version that exists. Not the version you remember. Not the version you hope will return. The one who is here right now, today, in front of you. That is the person who needs you. Now I want to talk for a few minutes about what I call the language of acknowledgement, because I think it is one of the most underused tools we have. Most of us were not taught this. We were taught to respond to problems with solutions. Someone is sad, cheer them up. Someone is struggling, give them advice. Someone is sick, find out what they need and get it. And all of that comes from love. I'm not disputing that. But for a lot of people with chronic illness, what they need most is simply to be heard. Not fixed. Heard. And the language of acknowledgement is very simple. It sounds like, that sounds really exhausting. Or, I can't imagine having to manage that every day. Or, of course you cancelled. You were not well. These sentences don't fix anything. But they do something more valuable. They close the gap. They say I am with you in this. Not across from you waiting for you to get better. With you. Now contrast that with the language of minimizing. At least it's manageable. It could be worse. Lots of people have it harder. These sentences, even when they come from love, actually increase isolation. Because what the person with Sjogrens hears is your suffering needs to be qualified before I'll fully acknowledge it. And they will stop telling you things. Not because they don't want to. Because they have learned that sharing leads to being talked out of their own experience. And so they go quiet. And then we wonder why they seem withdrawn. They are not withdrawn. They are protecting themselves from one more conversation that ends with them feeling more alone than when they started. So let's talk about how to ask questions instead, because that is something families struggle with enormously. They want to know how their loved one is doing. They want to stay connected. But the usual questions often backfire. How are you feeling? Well, that question could take 2 hours to answer honestly, and most of the time they don't have 2 hours, and even if they did, they're not sure you really want to know. Are you feeling any better? This one puts them in a bind because if they say no, they feel like they are letting you down, and if they say yes and they are not, now they are managing your emotions for you. Did you try that thing I sent you? This one comes entirely from love, but it puts pressure on them to have acted on your advice, and if they haven't, they feel guilty, and if they tried it and it didn't work, they feel like they've failed. Here are better questions. What has been the best part of your week? Even a small one, doesn't have to be big. Is there anything you're looking forward to? What would a really good day look like for you right now? What do you need most from me today? That last one is remarkable. Most families never ask it directly. They assume. They bring what they would want. But ask, what do you need from me today? And then be willing to hear the answer, even if the answer is actually, I just need you to sit here and not talk for a while. Now let's talk about the stories. Because I am a big believer in stories as connection tools. And I want to give you some homework here. Before your next visit, I want you to think of 3 stories. Just 3. Not big grand stories necessarily. Small ones. A memory you share. Something funny that happened that involves them somehow. A moment from their past that you know they are proud of. Write them down if you need to. Practice them a little. And when you go to see them, you come in with those 3 stories in your pocket. You try one. If it lands, great, let it go where it goes. If it doesn't, try another. And if none of them land, you know what you do? You go get a glass of water. You step away for a moment. You let both of you breathe. And you come back and try again later. The point of the stories is not to entertain them. The point is to give them an on-ramp to their own memories, their own feelings, their own sense of who they are. Because brain fog and fatigue can make someone feel like they've lost access to themselves. Like the person they used to be is behind a door they can't quite open. Your story is a key. It might not open the door every time. But sometimes it will. And when it does, that moment is worth everything. I'll tell you one more story before we get to questions because I think it illustrates all of this better than any framework I can hand you. A woman in one of my groups, I'll call her Patrice, her husband had been the one with the organizational mind in their marriage. He was the one who remembered every anniversary, kept the finances, knew exactly what was in the refrigerator and what needed to be replaced. And when Patrice got her Sjogren's diagnosis and the brain fog started affecting her, she would forget things he had told her. She'd open the refrigerator and not remember what she was looking for. She'd start a sentence and lose the end of it. And her husband, who loved her enormously, would correct her. Gently. Patiently. But he would correct her. You didn't order that, we already have that. No, that's not how it happened. And every correction, no matter how gentle, chipped away at something in her. She started second-guessing herself all the time. She started going quiet in conversations. She started checking out of decisions because she didn't trust her own mind anymore. When I talked with the husband, he was devastated. He had no idea he was doing this. He thought he was helping. He thought accurate information was a gift. And in another context maybe it is. But for someone with Sjogren's brain fog, correction is not a gift. It is a small repeated confirmation that your mind cannot be trusted. And that is catastrophic to someone who is already grieving the cognitive sharpness they used to have. So I told him, when she says something that's not quite right, your job is not to correct it. Your job is to let it be. To keep the conversation warm. To give her the experience of talking with someone who is not keeping score. And if it matters, if the information genuinely needs to be accurate, say it like this. I think it might have been a little different, but tell me more about what you remember. Not you're wrong. Tell me what you remember. Because her memory matters. Her version matters. She matters. And she needs to feel that from the person closest to her more than from anyone else in the world. He came back 2 weeks later and he said the difference was remarkable. Not because anything in her condition changed. But because she relaxed. She started talking more. She started venturing opinions again. She started being herself again in those conversations because she felt safe. That is what we are building here. Safety. A relationship where the person with Sjogren's does not have to perform wellness, does not have to justify their symptoms, does not have to manage your feelings about their illness on top of managing the illness itself. Just safety. To be exactly where they are today. To be known. To be loved without conditions attached to how functional they are. Now there is one final thing I want to say before questions, and this one is for you. The families. The caregivers. The people who love someone with Sjogren's. You are going to have bad days too. Days where you cancel something you wanted to do because they weren't well. Days where you feel invisible inside the caregiving. Days where you are so tired of Sjogren's, not of them, but of it, that you could scream. And that is real. That is not shameful. That is what happens when you love someone who is chronically ill and you are doing it well and fully and without holding back. It costs you too. And you need somewhere to put that cost that is not on them. So find your people. Find the person you can call after a hard visit and say today was really difficult and I just need to say that out loud. Get that outlet. Because if you don't, it builds up, and eventually it comes out sideways, in a conversation with them, in a correction that was too sharp, in a silence that carries too much in it. You are not a machine. You are a human being who loves someone complicated, and you deserve support too. The homework I give you is this. Capture your person. Not their symptoms. Them. Write down what they like to see and smell and taste and touch and hear. Write down 3 stories. Write down what they love. What makes them laugh. What they are proud of. What music lives in them. What they believe. Because that document, however informal, is a roadmap back to them on the days when Sjogren's is loud and they seem far away. That roadmap is how you find them. That roadmap says I know you. I did not forget who you are. I am not going to let this disease be the only story I tell about you. And on their end, every time you walk in holding one of those things, every time you ask the right question or bring the right smell or hum the right song, what they feel is not just pleasure or comfort. What they feel is I am still here. I am still me. Someone still sees me. And that is not a small thing. That is everything. All right. Questions, thoughts, things that are coming to mind, please, please, please ask.